Hi, everyone. This is April 24th, and we're talking about things like presidential power. This is a subject that Suzette brought up in one of our previous discussions, asking, kind of why it seems like someone in the executive office can get away with so much that is seems to be illegal. And so I did a little bit of research on this and got some answers about, official answers. But I'd like for everyone to discuss their response and how you feel like we can. I don't want this to make anyone feel like their hands are tied. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Oh, but before we start that, let's do just some quick introductions and an icebreaker question. Leo, do you happen to have one ready? Okay, you want to start with that?
You got to unmute.
Oops, sorry. Hi, everybody. My name is Leo. Pronouns are he, him. And today's icebreaker is, if you could try one thing with no consequences, what would it be? For me, it would be skydiving. Just to know that I wouldn't have a heart attack because I'm scared of heights. So I would definitely try that.
I did that like 2 years ago, Leo. I got a video of it and all, and I'll never do it again.
Was it scary?
It was scary. Plus, I had like a shoulder problem, so I couldn't like really hold my hands like he wanted me to. And I had vertigo, and he kept going in circles with the parachute. And I'm thinking, oh God, I'm gonna get sick. So when we landed, I had to sit there for about 10 minutes before I could do anything. But it was an experience, and I could say I finally did it.
Yay.
Yeah, but it is scary.
Nope.
Oh,
Never.
All right, Kim. Good job. I love the openness. Love the vibe. You've been killing it ever since you started going this way. Anyways. Hi everybody. My name's Jared. I'm pronouns he, him, she, her, they, them. We, it, all of them, right? And legally, I can't say exactly what I would do with no repercussions because that is an act of terrorism. But for the things that I can talk about, wow, that's a lot of terrorism. Wow.
Oh, just say it, Jared.
Now mentioning it is also an act of terrorism, by the way. I would probably, do a good old reallocation of wealth from a wealthy family to the poor. That's what I would do specifically. That one's not an act of terrorism. No. It is a crime, though.
wow. Suzette?
I too was trying to think of something legal. Oh God. You know, the one thing I think about doing, and I wouldn't do it because I would probably hurt my family, is get in my car and just drive to Washington State and find a place to hole up. Just like to like disappear for a little while. And not in a bad way. Just maybe find myself in a 40 days of what do they call it? Like a sabbatical. Like take a sabbatical with no consequences. No work consequences, no, just go one with nature, hike, all of the things that make me just in wonder of the world. And I love Washington State. I tried to stay there for as long as I could in the mountains and in the San Juans, but To me, that's paradise on earth. So a 40-day sabbatical where nobody missed me.
Nice. Let's keep going real quick. Kim?
Okay, I'm gonna go the criminal way because I like to watch a lot of like ID and like Oxygen True Crime and stuff. So I've always wondered if there really is a perfect crime, but I don't think there is because I see all the mistakes everybody makes, and I'm thinking, oh, I won't make that mistake. No way. And then I tell my sister when I get older and the country really goes to crapper, then I'm gonna commit a federal crime so I can live the rest of my life in Club Fed and not have to worry about paying for anything because they'll take care of me. But it will be a federal crime because they're better than state prisons. So yeah,
No
that's
doubt.
me.
Uh,
Y'all don't think bad of me because I said that now, okay? Because I've always been a true crime person.
yeah, what gets me about all the crimes shows is that the perpetrator never seems to show any guilt or
Right.
anything out, and I just don't think humans are built that way. Okay, Lynn?
Yeah, I'm Lynn, she, her, and if the one thing that I could do without, if I could do it without consequence, I can't say it because if I did, I'd have to kill you. But it would be to commit a crime. So, and it's a very specific crime. So, so yeah, but that without consequences. But otherwise, I'd probably do the same thing. Skydiving. It's something that I always thought about. And but I'm my heart wouldn't hold up. I don't think I'd just be too scared to get up there and do it. So yeah, skydiving.
Gregor?
Gregor, he, they, if I could do something without consequence for just one day, I would be president for one day and I would sign an executive order every single minute, undoing the executive orders that have been signed since January 20th of this year.
Love it, love it.
That's a good one.
Okay, Marco?
My God. Well, okay, everybody. Marco AM. I can get
You do lots of things like you
I
like to be the boss, right?
yeah, I could go pick a bug and get you go.
You be the boss of just everybody?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Well, gosh, I'm Carol, she, her, and I don't really have any desire to commit the perfect crime, but otherwise I like everything that everybody has said. And I've always wanted to do skydiving or any kind of thing that makes me feel like I'm flying, like gliding, hang gliding, something like that. But so I would do anything like that, but there's lots of things that that are
Okay,
probably
Mom.
criminal that I think would improve the
Okay,
world.
Mom. Why?
But
Go.
wouldn't want to do it with the consequences. Mona, would you like to jump in?
No, I don't have anything. Thanks.
All right, we're talking about okay, so the question that Suzette asked a few weeks ago that we're trying to answer tonight is, why does it seem like the president can just get away with acts even if they're illegal? So I'm going to give you a little bit of a technical answer to start with, which doesn't really speak to the fairness of it at all, but and it doesn't really give any answers about how we can deal with this emotionally or politically. So I hope that some of you have some ideas in that realm. So presidential immunity, there's a couple of different aspects to that. The legal protections in office shields the president from being sued for actions that are carried out in the course of official duties. So that's one part. But I think the thing that we're seeing more often these days is that from the Justice Department, from the legal branch, there's a longstanding opinion that the sitting president cannot be indicted
Yeah.
for,
Yeah.
or- okay, can I finish what I'm saying, Marco? The,
Okay. Oh, you.
or criminally prosecuted, because the rationale is kind of that could interfere with the president's ability to carry out official duties. But
Isn't
this,
that why we have a vice president?
well, I guess in legal matters they might be in cahoots, so I don't know.
Yeah,
So,
in this instance, that's kind of a moot point.
yeah, I think it would be, I mean, like, didn't that start, like, isn't that part of what the musical Hamilton talked about, was that the vice president, I think, wasn't like Hamilton about the same, isn't that about the time that where the president and the vice president started being elected together, and up until that point, you could have a Democratic vice president and a Republican president, or vice versa, or something. So that changed way back then. Anyway, so historically, the impeachment process is the remedy for when a president does something wrong. But this is a political process. It's not a legal process. And it requires a majority in the House, and a 2/3 majority in the Senate to convict and remove the president. And so we've seen in the past where like when Clinton was impeached and then the Senate overturned it, so he wasn't removed. So when you have the same party in a majority as the president, that's not gonna that's unlikely to happen. And and the same thing has to do with just the power and influence of the executive branch, because since the president controls the executive branch, he also controls law enforcement agencies such as the FBI, the Department of Justice, the intelligence agencies. And so officials can be really reluctant to pursue actions against the president, and of course also influence over Congress, and also legal investigations can take years, and so these matters drag on while the president is kind of getting their way. And so, there's not much, there's never been a lot of immediate consequence, and there's no historical precedence really for full accountability. Nixon resigned before impeachment processes even got really going. So legal processes can continue after a president is out of office, but that's not very much of a deterrent for what they're doing while they're in office. So there are a lot of lawsuits currently going, and we can talk a little bit more about that, but who has comments about these these issues?
Hey, go.
Jared or Leo?
Okay, you go.
Hi, Margo. I think it's important to also remember that it's very important to not comply in advance, right? Because although the dude is, you know, using and wielding his power like a tyrant, because just like in the Hitler times, right? There are a lot of systems that we actually do have that causes people to, like, you know, that people have to buck up against and somehow find a way around and wiggle around before that they can seize power absolutely. And you know, he hasn't, right? He hasn't, and not yet, right? Not yet. And you know, it is the yets that are very, very important, because that's what actually, like, while Hitler was at war, many of those systems that the government at the time, Germany, had, that was what was the checks and balance systems, actually like postponed some invasions, postponed some murder attempts, postponed, right? Like some assassin, like they did stall. And while those checks and balances are still existing here, you know, we have to recognize that it's our job to not give up beforehand, right? Before these things fall. It's because usually whenever we give up, like the first thing you do whenever there's like an asteroid coming, right? Or you feel like you're in the face of utter annihilation, right? Is you just go and hug your family members, right? You're not angry. You just reach out to a family member to look for some form of comfort at the end of your life. And that is exactly where they want us, right? They want us to give up, to give power before we've actually put up a fight. And it's very so crucial for us to remember that we have to fight. We have to fight every step of the way. Yes, this is a dictator, but this is not a dictatorship yet.
Yeah, I think those are really good points, and I especially like that you said don't give up, but still hug your family anyway, without giving up.
Okay, Kim.
Okay, Kim.
Go.
Okay, what I don't understand is that things that require Congress's approval that he does, why they just do it blindly. Maybe he makes them threats, but I don't think he can fire a representative. I don't think he can fire a senator. Only we can do that. And I guess I don't get why they don't realize that they could take his threats all day long and knowing that he really can't do anything about that as far as making them lose their jobs. Now, his cabinet, people he appointed, sure, he can. But I think we just have to stop being so afraid
Well, I think
to stand up.
You may have seen in the news, like one of the what is she, was she a representative from Alaska or a senator? I don't know. Anyway, the made really good points about retaliation is real. So even though she couldn't be fired, even though any representative or senator can't be fired by the president, they can
Oh my God.
the president has shown very clearly the ways
Oh, boy.
that retaliation can occur, including destroying the economic benefits to their state. I mean, like states that are very, very dependent on federal funds, much of which the executive branch seems to be in control of, even though that isn't the way it was intended. The executive branch has been able to show very strong means of economic retaliation.
Right, I understand that, but there's so many representatives and so many senators. I just don't think he could retaliate against every single one of them if they all band together.
I
And
think
that's what it will
true.
take. Now if one or two try to be standouts, maybe. But if they all band together and say, no, we're not putting up with this anymore, then I don't think he can really retaliate against that many people.
That's true, but I think the Congress is, you know, just as divided as the rest of our nation. And so, yeah, it's been very disappointing to see, um, particularly the Democratic Party not standing up in unison. That's been very, very disappointing. Lynn?
Okay, Egg, go.
I think that that there need to be maybe required lessons in civics, because I think that most people even haven't thought about it since high school. But our government, the United States government, is composed of co-equal branches. So the executive branch is not more powerful than the legislative branch or the judicial branch, but we have an awful lot of people who are in power right now who are just more concerned about the 40 pieces of silver than they are about representing the people that elected them and got them there. There are a lot of, I've never seen such a display of cowardice of people who are afraid. I mean, you know, it's like the executive branch is now, they're the bully. They're the schoolyard bully. And they're just bullying people into bowing down. Although you have seen cracks where somebody stands up to them, like I heard on yesterday that some retail CEOs went to visit the president and told him, if you don't, you know, do something with these tariffs, the shelves are going to be empty. You know, that what you're doing is actually going to affect people where they live. And I think that message is starting to get out. But right now, we have a person who believes that he is a king, and he has surrounded himself with people who agree with that. And we just have an amazing lack of, well, I think the Democrats have done what they wanted, what they could do. Consider that Republicans control the White House, they control the Senate, and they control the House of Representatives. That's all of government. So the Democrats can't do anything except talk. And, you know, we can blame the Democrats all we want, but really, the Democrats didn't elect this president. The Democrats didn't elect this Congress.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind
So
of scary. And I understand only 2% of the people who voted for this president are regretting that decision. Well, let's talk about some of the lawsuits that are ongoing. You know, who knows? I mean, time will tell if they make a difference or not. But one of the ones, let's talk about criminal cases first. Uh, like there's a federal case accusing Trump of attempting to overturn the 2020 election, excuse me. That one was dismissed with no consequences. I mean, after an appeals court ruled in his favor. He was convicted in January of falsifying business records related to financial dealings, but sentenced with an unconditional discharge. So basically, no consequences. And then in the Georgia election racketeering prosecution, that's still that case is currently delayed. So back to some federal lawsuits. The National Urban League filed in February a lawsuit that challenges 3 of the executive orders issued by Trump. That they're saying that some of these executive orders violate free speech and due process rights. So that's pending. the San Francisco AIDS Foundation contests the same executive orders on behalf of LGBTQ and HIV affected communities. Then the state of Washington challenges an executive order aiming to restrict birthright citizenship. So that's important. Some of the ones that impress me the most have to do with when people group together. There's a tariff lawsuit brought by a coalition of 12 Democratic state attorneys general, led by the New York Attorney General Letitia James, and they're suing Trump over the imposition of tariffs without congressional approval. So that's ongoing, but I mean, the ruling could be years away. And so the consequences are pretty dire in the meantime. And then a federal judge has blocked key aspects of Trump's executive order aimed at overhauling federal election processes, including requiring proof of citizenship. So that's at least one positive step that seems to have made a difference, at least for now. What do you think is do you think there's been any good consequences of the protests? That's one of my questions, but I had two hands raised before I asked that. So we'll Leo or Jared.
Okay, go.
So so that's a 12 different parts. I wanted to comment on that's the statement of like the lawsuits that Trump is going through. I think it's it is very like inevitable, right, for everyone to bear the weight of the mistakes that they make in life, of course, but in real time we have to also recognize that when the lawsuits resolve themselves, right, no matter what, the people who are actually affected won't get the money, right? Like the people who are actually like need the help, right? And for some of them it's going to be too late. This is all at the expense of the poor, right? All the insider tradings, all the insider buying, and the money stays upwards and really just increases the wealth inequality, right? And so I'm going to use this to answer the second question, right? Of is protest useful? The habit of challenging capital is important to build. It is very important to build that habit because over time, through the course of this presidency, and through the course of America's lifespan, we will have experienced atrocity after atrocity. It's not a prediction. It's it's what's going to happen. You know what's happening to the environment, and because of this, we have to get into the groove of organizing, of creating organization space. There was this one time where there was this flood in Louisiana, right? I think it was because of Hurricane Katrina, right? Where many mutual aid organizations rose up and were created during those time periods, right? And it's wild because those same mutual aid organizations made it were actually used and networked to essentially enter into the Black Lives Matters protests, and a lot of the social media outlets, right, that were developed during those same, formation of those protest networks, right, were used in, well, like current, like current protests that we are experiencing today, right? Like, so protesting in the relationship building realm is very, very important for both the flexing of your ability to say no muscles, and also in the forming of pivotal relationships for whenever challenging capital does matter. Because like whatever y'all believe, Black Lives Matter has actually done a significant amount. There was an entire corrupt police precinct that was burnt to the ground, because of Black Lives Matter. And it did make a difference. People were scared to do the crime. The police brutality rates did drop because cops were scared to commit crimes against people of color, right? Protests do things, but that's just a small representation in America. If you want to know what protests really do, you really need to go to South America. You really need to go to Africa. You really need to go to some of the Asian Indian continents to look at all the dictators that are dead.
Kim?
I think you hit it when you mentioned consequences. I don't think he has ever suffered any consequences for anything he's ever done in his entire life, and until he has to actually face a consequence, I think he's going to continue doing what he's doing, just like a child.
He feels
They will push
untouchable.
you and they will push you and they will push you till they can see how far they can go before they have to suffer them consequences. And then once that happens, they say, oh, okay, so I can't go past this point. So until he faces that point, I think we're going to be in a world of hurt because of that, because he says, hey, nobody's doing anything to me. I can do whatever I want and not worry about it. So yeah, that's what I think.
I love that, Kim. That's really significant. Lynn?
Yeah, Kim just hit the nail right on the head. That is exactly it. He strikes me as a person who has never been told no, doesn't like being told no, and if you tell him no, he's going to try his best to turn that into a yes or just ignore what you say. I mean, he's right on the line of disobeying a ruling from the Supreme Court. So, yeah, I think until people realize that he is a bully and smack back, that we're going to be in a world of hurt. I agree.
I think one of the things that brings to my mind is just the role of religious people, and I'm not talking about white Christian nationalists. I'm talking about us, and it seems like they're like the highest goal of this entire administration, and maybe, well, I'll just say this administration is just maximizing profits and ignoring consequences. I think the question of the day was very apropos, because I think, as Kim said, the president has not really suffered any consequences, and but people are, and so I'm really confused by why so many people in this country are still so supportive of this kind of I mean, there's just so much obvious harm that's being done to so many people, and to the earth, just this extractive economy where you just try to take and take and take, no matter the consequences to the earth, to the poor, to people of color, to immigrants, to every single person except maybe you know, white male cis billionaires. This it just floors me that we've that just the values are being ignored. And what kind of world is that? I mean, when you just get all the money for a few people that you want, then but I mean, you can't even walk outside because the climate is right, and you can't have anybody to hang out with because everybody's been deported or jailed or just demoralized. Then I mean, what kind of world is that? We live to be in relationship, and so I think the church has a and we as individuals, I also really like the way that Jared brought up just the habit of challenging uh, capital, I would say, or challenging, however you want to say it, empire, the status quo, whatever. We're challenging this idea that profits are the primary goal and that values don't matter. We need to challenge that first in ourselves and remember what our values are. As Kreger always says, begin with love. and 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 everything, all of these decisions need to have a values-based economy, a values-based reason for being, in my opinion. And I think maybe progressive Christians have not spoken out enough. Lynn?
So then that's why I mentioned civics, because at the risk of, well, knowing that I am the elder in this group, um, um, I grew up pledging allegiance to the flag. There was a different time when I was a child where patriotism and civic duty and um, um, going to school and being respectful to teachers and principals and for authority, all of those things mattered. And it's the way the world was, and it didn't matter what whether you were a person of color or not. Yes, you know, people of color had the short end of the stick most of the time, but we certainly had the same values. You mentioned that word values and integrity, and we were that we were patriotic. You know, country was important, and so when you look now, where are people getting their values from? I mean, there's, you know, where are their values coming from? And there was a movie some time ago where greed is good. And the capitalistic system certainly hasn't helped, because for the love of money is just par for the course now. And so, yes, we have a huge task in front of us. But things like truth, I mean, look at this administration the last time. Alternative facts, I think, was the term that was used. There's no such thing as an alternative fact. It's either a fact or it's a lie. You know, and that's it. I mean, they struggled to even call out untruths. Couldn't even call it untruth. So when we talk about values and we talk about integrity and we talk about character, we have to look at what a majority, the majority, where is that coming from? Probably for most of us, it comes from our upbringing, and we have the word says, train up a child in the way it should go, and when it's old, it won't depart from it. And I'm a witness that that's true, because I was trained up in a certain way, and though I had my wild years and wild moments and did some things that I wasn't very proud of, and certainly would never want my parents to know, I have come back to what makes sense and what's real. And I think that we're just in this moment in time, and it is up to Christians, up to people of faith, not necessarily Christians, people of faith, to model the behavior that we want to see in the world.
Beautiful. Suzette?
I think that the cry of fake news on a regular kind of not didn't kind of it made us question everything, even what could be the truth. Like, I think it left some people in a place of, I'm not sure what reality is or not, and how do I validate that? And where do I get my reality from if I can't get it from the world, right? I think children are exposed to so much more than we were ever exposed to as children and desensitized over time. My own child says things to me that make me want to cry. And he's a good kid. He's a good boy. He's got great morals. He's got a great conscience. He's got this, he's got that. But he's another one who thinks that there's a right and there's a left, and one is right and one is wrong. And oh mom, you just believe everything. You're so gullible. And it's like I have history that I know about that was presented to me over the course of my life. I'm not living on YouTube, I'm not living on social media. I ironically do it for a living, but I have learned to censor things that create inconsistencies in my mind. And even those people who have been brought up with morals and church and religion and 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 people in their lives who were consistent and honest and hardworking and all of the things that I would think that society values, I have a child that questions that in me. How can I believe this? It's just fake. And it just makes me want to cry because I don't know how that happens. And like, if I said, if you don't stop believing that, I'm going to turn my back on you, he would accept my point of view because he values me that much. But I've never been that, you know, you have to make a choice. You have to make a choice between what you believe and what I believe. We go to the same church, right? Here's the same stuff that I do, but he filters it differently. So I can't tell you why. And it's not disheartening, but it makes me wonder how I can change it. I can't just be an example. I have to do something about this. I can't just be an example of goodness. It doesn't work. It's not good enough. So what can we do? And it's like I'm
It's
still
hard.
waiting for that signal that I'm still waiting for a person in a position of leadership to rally the people and make them, make us nice people want to, you know, do more. Do more and know what my rights are and know what I can do that would be effective.
Well, don't
Am I going to
underestimate
call my
your
senator?
influence.
Does that even matter if I call a politician or, you know, tell them I'm unhappy and wow, if you vote that way, I'm never going to vote for you again? None of it makes sense. And it's very confusing to me. So this is where I have to have my faith, and this is where I have to have things that that center and ground me, and I have to look for things in the world. Like if I focus on the negative crap that's on TV, I could get mired down in it. But I can look for good stuff and find it. So I wanna find more good stuff and talk about it and reflect on it. And I wish there was something I can do to impart that in the mind of my own child. So I'm just using this as a personal example of the inability to just be an example and have it be the thing that motivates someone to following the right thing or what I think is the right thing. Sorry if that was long and confusing, but maybe someone else can help me here.
Well, for one thing, Suzette, I don't want you to underestimate your influence, especially, to a child, that admires you so much. So, sometimes parental influence takes many years to, to really manifest itself. And, I know I'm an example of that. I sure didn't listen to my parents when I was the
I
age
hope there's
of.
consequences. I hope there's consequences that my child can witness for this person so that he will know that that person did something wrong.
Yeah, but it is very confusing about who to believe. And we've talked before, it's been a long time, but we've talked about the influence of the media. And I mean, things changed during the Reagan administration when news uh, entities no longer had to ascribe to a certain amount of truth, when bias was allowed into the news outlets, and things started changing a lot back then. And it's really hard sometimes to discern the truth, um but we know our own truths. And I
I'm
want
strong in my truth. You
and I
know,
want
I
you to
don't,
understand that you've influenced me just in this group. You are, let's not any of us underestimate our influence, whether it's just on each other. I mean, these ripples are bigger than we know. And as Jared started out this conversation with, just don't give up. We never know what seeds we plant might grow to be a big oak someday. Let me read the quote from Booker T. Washington that Lynn put in the chat. A lie doesn't become truth, wrong doesn't become right, and evil doesn't become good just because it's accepted by a majority. So it is hard to find the truth sometimes, but this group is one way to start trying to sift through it and trying to find our way. So thank you all for being here and being a part of this group. Jared and Leo.
Yes, and bear with me. Do have some mercy because I tend to lose my train of thought a lot. So, uh, so for my ancestors in Mexico, we honestly believe that the earth and everything that was put on this earth should be free, and we should live in a fraternity where everybody shares everything. And I think, and I don't mean to offend anyone, I love this country, but the United States, when it was founded by our founding fathers, has been cursed since the moment it was established. And I say that because of all the genocide that happened, you know. And it's like you just said, Carol, just because someone says, oh, we're a good country, a lie doesn't become the truth. You know. And we're in the situation we're in because we never get to respect our brothers or sisters. We devalue their value. And it's something that we're missing. We're missing like culture. You know, what When I go to Mexico, yes, these are poor people. You can look at it like a third world country, but one thing that they do have is culture and that respect for one another. And in this country, that's what is lacking, because first it started with the Native Americans. We started off wrong. Then it started with African Americans. Now it's the Latinos. You know, when is it going to stop? Like when? And that's why we're in the situation that we're in, because it's like we go from country to country. And if you look at the United States history, first we start training people in the East to do our dirty work, right? So now that we have alienated everybody in the East, guess where we're going now? We're going to, and we did it to the East, we did it to our neighbors in Mexico. And now that we're caught in a lie, oh, now we're going to move to Central America. Now we're moving to El Salvador to do our dirty work. And like I've said it to several of my Salvadorian friends. I'm like, El Salvador needs to be very careful what it's doing, because in 10 years, I guarantee you, 10 or more years, El Salvador will be in a war with the United States.
Yeah, I think you're very right about all of that. And I'm afraid that just like our country, El Salvador is um, at the mercy of some administration that doesn't reflect some of their values. And I think where the reason our administration is able to make deals with them is because they have somebody who's saying, you know, we don't care about the values. You know, we're going to profit off of this. This is all about profit. It's all, you know, somebody's making a lot of money from all the people that we're sending down there, people on this side and people on that side. And so we need to try to find a way where other values are represented. Kreger?
Well, somewhere between 6:45, oh wait, no, somewhere between 6:15 and 6:30 tonight, I lost my resilience. And so I have gotten nothing but more and more depressed as this hour has gone by listening to this conversation. So I just want to say that I think it was really kind of cool that Pope Francis is on display in state in that wooden casket, not this big glorious poofy casket. He never accepted the $340,000 euro salary that the Pope is supposed to get. He's going to be buried with where the poor people are buried and not where all the other popes are buried. And just for myself, I had to bear witness to a somewhat Christ-like example that we have just seen before our eyes the last week or so, and something on the positive.
Thank you, Kreger. That was very good to bring us back to the positive, and let's we don't have very much longer. We did start a little bit late, but maybe we could just each say one or two positive values that you want to hold up that maybe you've seen a little bit of some examples of. And so Kreger, you brought up Pete Buttigieg in the comments about following because he sounds like love to you. And I think,
Well, if you go watch some of Pete's Facebook message, I don't know what it is, Instagram, it's whatever. I'm only on Facebook, but I get reels and I get media coming in from everywhere. I don't necessarily know what I'm looking at, but if you stumble across an interview or something with Pete Buttigieg, you listen to what he has to say. He's not angry. He's very calm and he's very articulate. He's extremely articulate, and it sounds like you're never going to have a politician or someone come out and say, I love you as human beings. No, that's never going to happen. But what are the words that are actually coming out of their mouth, and how do they resonate? Be present in the moment with what you're listening to, and how does it make your body feel? How does your mind feel as these words are flowing over your brain? Does it provide hope? Does it provide peace? Does it provide comfort? And so that's what I get when I listen to some of the stuff that Pete is saying now. And I don't know that America could ever elect a gay man as president, but I sure hope that Pete has a big say in who the Democrats are going to run up against the wall in the next election, because we just need a solid, stable, compassionate voice like his, in my opinion.
You just brought up a lot of positive words. Let y'all just throw out some positive words that have to do with some of these good values. I heard you say love, joy, comfort, hope. Somebody else
Truth,
added some in here. Truth,
integrity,
integrity, good.
courage.
Ah, yes, land of the brave.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say bravery.
Yeah, freedom.
Freedom. Yes.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Well, I'm sorry that there was that Kreger, you expressed some discouragement, but thank you. We also need to hold space for each other when we are discouraged, and so we can't
And
always be encouraging. So thank you all for being here and being here for each other. So
Just
uh,
one last thing. You know, I think that it's really important for us to go look for something good every day, because we're just inundated with negativity, that if we just look for something good, we'll find it, and that can reignite hope in ourselves. Um,
wow,
it
beautiful.
can, and you know, going through some rough times myself, it's like, God, why is this happening to me? And then freaking the news and all this other stuff, and then it's like, I saw something that made me happy, or I saw something that made me feel good, or I was watching something about outer space, and I thought, God, it's so much bigger than me. It's all so much bigger than me. And I just have to have my faith. I just have to have it. And I believe this is when I have the most faith, is when I'm the most afraid. I have to. I have to.
For me, what works is doing something good for others.
Mm,
True that.
mm. You'll never feel better. Yeah. Um,
and in my case,
unexpectedly.
this is a temporary lack of resilience. It'll be back in another 30 minutes or so. I just, um, the thing I like about this group is that I can make a statement, and like the noon prayer group, you make a statement and everybody swarms in and tries to fix you. I'm like, I don't need to be fixed. I just need to tell people what's on my heart and have you
Yeah.
hear me, and
Yeah.
just go, yes, this conversation has been, it seems
Depressing.
at this moment in my life right now, this conversation seemed extremely heavy, and like I feel like there's no way out of this. It's just I'm just sinking, and so I know that's not true. I know that's not true. It's just going to take me a minute to collect my thoughts, and
Thank you
and
for expressing that. And it is just huge to be heard. It is huge. And it's really timely I had a beautiful session with my therapist today about, when I'm feeling the most discouraged and the most angry, to sit down and try to listen to myself, to my little inner child, and be like, oh honey, what do you need? What is it that
But
so we can even provide that. She showed me a way that maybe I could provide that in a little bit, even for myself. But the fact that you're all here showing up and doing that for me and for each other is a really beautiful thing.
There's
and
tremendous value in listening. And I had a session, not it's not a session, but I had a consultation with a client this week, and she had a complete breakthrough when we were having our meeting. And I walked away from that and I was like, I helped somebody have a breakthrough, a life altering breakthrough. And I didn't like credit myself with it, but I'm just saying I witnessed it. I witnessed her have a breakthrough. And it wouldn't have maybe happened if we didn't have that conversation. So I have to hang on to things like that.
Yes, ma'am. You need the breakthroughs.
And don't get discouraged. Your son is listening. Believe.
Yeah.
Yes, he
because-
is.
Go give him a baby Jesus, please.
Because I was
Just keep praying for him, and have no doubt that he is listening. He is listening.
Beautiful.
Gregor.
Gregor, what? Okay. Can we go on?
Yeah.
Gregor, will you pray us out?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Holy God, we come to you again on this Thursday night. We're grateful for each person in this group. And like this evening, sometimes the conversations are hard, and sometimes they're difficult, and sometimes they're depressing. And what I need to remind myself in moments like these is that when you get into these states where you're feeling the hopelessness and you're feeling this and that and the other and the negative things, the primary thing that we can do is remember that you are with us, and then change our mind about what we're thinking. We always have control over what we are going to think. That is not coming from any place outside of ourselves. So when we get into these situations in our lives, we ask for your Holy Spirit. We ask in the name of Jesus. We ask in the name of all that is good and all that is love to come into us and let us breathe and realize that we can control what we think. We can control our mood, and we can just be responsible for what we're doing. And we just have to be aware. We just have to say, wait a minute, I'm feeling this. Let me breathe a second and let me bring God back in. Let me bring you back in, God. So be with us here right this minute, and right the next minute, and right the next minute after that, and always. And it's in Jesus' name that we're grateful and that we pray. Amen.
Amen.